Today. We're going to have a short introduction on the importance of software quality, the origins of poor quality, and we're going to try to define software quality. And then Alan will go a little bit deeper into QPA, our methodology to improve and achieve software quality, and he will highlight that by the case study, and we'll give a conclusion. And of course, there's time for questions and answers. Well, we as a company, we think software quality is important, and if you look at ongoing trends, we feel software quality is becoming even more important. Alan, what do you think?
Yes, it's becoming so important because software is in everything now, which you will see. But I like this example of Knight, but I don't know the details. I know they had a problem with their software, but what exactly happened?
Yeah.
Do you remember what happened with this company, Jan?
Yeah, Knight is an interesting example. They're a U.S. trading company, and actually they made an update for new software, but they forgot to erase some of their old codes. And then in 45 minutes, they lost 440 million USD. Those are expensive minutes.
Oh, my.
Yeah, and just a short Google search shows what you get from it. Yeah, it's very important and expensive.
Wow. Just a small little minor software glitch can have an enormous cost. Right.
Yeah, and I think there's something you see happening all over, right? Software is gaining importance in many industries. You know, you buy your books not at the bookstore, but from Amazon. You watch your movies via Netflix. Even in more traditional industries such as agriculture or manufacturing, you see that software is taking over a more important part of the process. I'm not sure, Alan, are you familiar with Mark Andreessen and his article in the Wall Street Journal?
No, I'm not. I've heard about it, but I'm not that familiar with it.
Well, he's the founder of Netscape, and he coined the term software eats the world, describing that process where software takes over more and more of our industry.
Right. Having software control the car, I must admit, makes me a little nervous. But that's where the world is going to.
Well, I guess for us in QA and testing, it's not bad, right? The more software there is, the more work there is for us.
Especially since the software quality and quality assurance is getting to be so important nowadays. As a quality assurance testing expert company, yes, that is becoming very good for us. So we have the consequences of low quality.
Yeah, Alan, maybe you can explain a couple of these.
Of course, you can put in enormous amounts of effort and then have your software project canceled. Of course, the cost overruns are just enormous. And then if you, like Knight software, if you have a software glitch, it can cost millions of dollars for your customers. And so the cost and the consequences are very severe for poor quality.
And how about having good quality, Alan? Is there also a boon to that?
Oh, well, just as bad quality can destroy your company, good quality can really make your company. If your product is of extremely good value and good quality, then your customers will line up for your product. Because when you introduce a new product with software, people are usually resistant. But if you have a standard of high quality, they'll line up for it. It reminds me of Apple when they introduced iPhone 5. Nobody was worried about the problems of the new software system because of their reputation for high quality. If you have a reputation for high quality, people will pay a much higher price than for another product that could be just as good, but they don't have a reputation for high quality, they will not pay as much. And of course, reduced maintenance costs, reduced customer service costs, reduced development costs. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but the value of software quality is enormous, and the detriment of not having good quality is very severe. So as we go on, the consequences of bad quality is getting worse, and the value of good quality is getting more. And so the rationale and the motivation to get your quality very, very high is getting more and higher and higher. Okay. Let's take a look at this group. These stats are almost unbelievable. 2002, the Butler Group did a study. 70% of the major software projects failed, canceled. I mean, that is just, these failure rates are just astounding. And then it looked like it was getting better for a while, but 2007, 2009, 50% of major software projects ended up in failure. Wow. So you have to ask yourself, I mean, why is this happening? Well, one major reason is because, well, unlike the building industry, where when you build a house, those processes are well known. They've been well known for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years. So those processes and the materials are so well known that you can get them down very precisely. However, the software world is changing dramatically. You went from IBM mainframes to PCs to the internet, now the mobile, and things are changing so fast that you thought you knew how everything, the processes worked real well 10 years ago, but none of those processes work again today. And now we're transitioning to an agile environment, which makes it even harder. So all those changes makes it very, very hard to keep the quality of your product high. Very hard. So your customers will evaluate your software and make purchasing decisions based on the quality of your software. That is very critical. So Jan, you want to go over these traditional definitions of quality?
Yeah, maybe explain what type of qualities there are, right? The definitions of quality. I think one of the traditional definitions is the conformance to requirements, right?
Right, but we know that that is not a good definition because requirements can account for 20% of the software defects. I was a part of a company where we just finished, after 15 months of development, we delivered a product and customers rejected it totally. And the software development group said they had a high quality product because it matched requirements. Well, who cares if it matches requirements if the customers won't accept it? So not getting the requirements right is critical. Just because you fit the requirements may not matter. Ultimately, what's quality? Well, whatever customers and users define it to be. So, here we have defect origins. So you get defects in requirements, design, coding, documentation, testing, maintenance. And that's going to happen. The problem is that most of these defects do not show up until maintenance after production. They show up in production, and that is very, very severe. Very severe, and that's why products get canceled, they fail, and there's severe costs to the customer and to the company producing it. This is a major, major problem. And most people, most companies, they are only concerned with one part, and that's the coding, the programming, quality assurance part. But that's not where you can't only, if you just concentrate on that part, then you will fail. But I'm a engineer at heart, technical person. I like something that I can quantify. The old saying, if you can't measure it, you don't control it. And so here's a technical definition of quality. 5% of your post-production defects, your severity 1 and severity 2 defects, can't be more than 5% of your total defects that you found in the entire process. In other words, when we say post-production, we're just talking about the first 90 days after production release. If those defects are less than 5% of your total defects, then you have a high-quality product. Now you may say, isn't that a little bit arbitrary? Well, let's take a look at why that definition works so well and why it is a good definition. Well, first of all, this definition was applied against 10,000 small, medium, and large software projects. So this technical definition, each project was given a high, medium, or low quality rating based on that definition. And then they looked at all the characteristics of the high quality and compared them to the characteristics of the low quality using that definition. So let's take a look and see what they found using that definition in the high and low quality products. Okay, they found out that the average cost of the canceled projects was $35 million. For the same size project, a successfully completed project with a that fit the standard of high quality of the definition I just gave you, the average cost was $20 million. So the low quality projects that were canceled, wow, $35 million, that's huge. So let's take a look at it a little bit more. Staffing levels. Those projects, those software projects, even when they were successfully completed and they went to the customer and they took a look at them, the staffing for development was about 50,000 man months of effort. The high quality one was only 38,000 man hours. So you can see there's about a 30% decrease in the number of man hours that you have to put forth. And then if you look at maintenance and enhancement effort, it's just the same. You have about a 25 to 35% decrease in the amount of effort you have to put forth. Well, that translates into huge savings. The average total cost of development for low quality was $24 million. For high quality, only $16 million. 5 years, the 5-year total cost of maintenance and enhancements for the low quality was about $20 million, but only about $15 million for the high quality. So if you use that definition and you apply it to your product, and you make sure that you get these defects out pre-production, then when you release the product and you find defects, it has to be less than 5% of the total defects. If that's true, then you'll fit the definition of a high-quality product and all the advantages of that based on the experience of 10,000 projects will also come to your project. So that's why I think this definition really works for me. So the question, of course, is how do you get a high quality, how do you get the defects out early in the cycle? Well, let's take a look at that. This is the traditional view of the quality life cycle of a product. You look at development, quality assurance, you get the defects out, you work on it, get defects out, and if you get most of the defects out, you say I got a high quality product. But that is not a good definition, because the product life cycle is in its entirety much more complicated. You have the sales going to design requirements, going to development and production, maintenance and support. All those areas affect quality. And if you just look at development, production, and QA, and that's the only area that you're concentrating on to improve quality, well then you're going to fail. So, for the key, the quality of each phase or step has an influence on the quality of the next phase. That is very key. So, and not only having a high quality product is important, but you must have a perception of high quality. Of course, perception of high quality does depend on having a high quality product, but it's also influenced by many other factors, and the expectations have to be set properly, and those expectations are influenced by much of the rest of the organization, not just the product, not just the development staff. The entire organization sets those quality perceptions and quality expectations. Okay, this is the framework we're going to work with, and we're going to go into more detail in each section. But as you can see, the sales has interactions with the customers. That influences the perceived quality. The customer service has interactions with the customers. That is a big input in how the customer perceives the quality. And of course, the product management defines the requirements. If they don't see the customer clearly, if they don't understand the needs of the customer, so all these areas we're going to look at more carefully, not just development and the quality assurance area, but we need to look at the entire scope. So let's use this framework and see how it works. Okay. So within each phase, you need to understand what quality is in each phase. And these measurements, well, when we go through it and measure it, we'll see how it flows into the next phase. Okay. It is possible to have a high-quality product, but with poor customer perceived quality. And that is a real tragedy if you have a high-quality product, but the customers perceive it with low quality. And right now, like I said before, everybody concentrates on product development quality. But we need to also look at the sales quality, the requirements quality, the customer service quality, because those really influence the customer perceived quality. Okay? And slow me down or stop me, Jan, if I'm going a little bit too fast or whatever.
No, you're doing well.
So I keep track of time. Pardon?
Well.
Okay. Let's look at the sales quality first. Sales quality, well, you have a customer understanding, marketing material. Now, what if the marketing material does not match your product? Then the customers will have a very wrong impression of what it is supposed to do. What if in the sales process, the salesman promises things that the product can't do? That is very severe. The relationship you have at the beginning with your customer sets the tone for how they perceive the quality. If you're sloppy in the way you interact with the customer, getting back to them on time, the customer expectations can be severely degraded, and that will flow into the perception of your product, which can be severely undermined. But the biggest thing, and we're going to go through an example later in the marketing material. Okay, in sales, the wrong expectation. We were at a customer site where we had all the VPs that we were going over the quality of their sales and marketing, and they thought their quality was very, very good, and to some extent it was. And then we started going over what their marketing material and their website said about their product, and we asked them, are all these things true? Well, the VP of sales was shocked by some of the things that were promised. He did not even know some of the things that were promised in their marketing material and on their website. He was hearing it for the first time. And all of a sudden, a light bulb went off in his head. He could not understand why there was some perception of low quality on some of the turnaround time of information that he was providing. And then he realized that the marketing material was making a promise that could not be delivered because they were dependent on third-party databases that could not deliver the data that quickly. So wrong expectations were set. Unfulfilled promises were given to the customer. There was a big misunderstanding in the company, and it was very, very severely impacted the perception of quality of their product. Very severe. Okay, now you have product management quality. Well, who's supposed to understand the customer? Well, product management. And who's supposed to understand how to fulfill the customer's need? Product management. Now, if they do not have a complete understanding, and if they're not communicating those requirements properly to development, then things fall apart. So they have to first get a proper understanding of the customer, the needs of the customer, and then completely and accurately and with a timeliness communicate those to development. And if any of those things break down, of course, again, let's look at this overall chart. Vague, incomplete, poorly written requirements, lack of and if the developers don't understand and they have to go back to requirement to ask what does this mean, that slows down the process. And you know what happens with schedules when development takes longer than they expect? Then QA, quality assurance, their time, if the overall process, they're trying to meet their deadlines, QA can't meet the deadlines because development is slowing things down. Development is slowing down because the requirements are vague and they got to go back. They implement it not quite right, so they go back to ask the question, they get it clarified, and then they realize they have to do a section over again because the requirements were not specific enough, or they were too vague, or they were incomplete, or they were poorly written. These are very severe problems that if they're not corrected in the beginning, then those problems go down to the next phase and the next phase, and those problems build up. Then you have development and QA. You know, bad code rework. Rework is a major problem in many companies. And the rework because of bad requirements. It's also because the QA team and the development team are not really in agreement or talking to each other clearly. So when you go through the development cycle, the defects, the tester, and all these things, but this area is better understood than the other areas because this is where people mainly focus on. You get the quality, but even so, now that we're going to a more of an agile environment, we're finding out, we're hearing it everywhere. Everyone seems to want to go to agile. That puts a severe pressure on delivering high quality software. And the reason is because things have to happen quicker, faster. So it's very important to get the QA team in there as soon as possible so you can avoid rework and you can adhere to the standards that you want. Each phase is very severe, so in the agile environment, making things go quicker, but also the agile environment has a less of an emphasis on documentation, which is why the product management team has to make sure that their documentation is complete and concise, and they can develop it quickly but completely, which is very hard to do. Again, coding errors, non-conformance to corporate best practices, not extensible for performance, all these things can severely hurt. And then, of course, QA, not having good test cases, not being inaccurate in test cases, incomplete, defects not written understandably so that when it goes back to development, every part of the cycle has to be very clear in their written communication. And people get into the habit of being sloppy with the written communication between QA and development requirements, and this can severely degrade the quality. And then customer service, which is mainly forgotten. Customer service has a very, very key role in keeping the quality high. One of the biggest things that they can deliver is good reports on where the problems are, where the errors are, what's going well, what questions are being asked, and this information must be delivered clearly to the development team, to upper management, to the sales department, because this is where you get real customer feedback. And if this feedback is not delivered properly to all the right groups, then your quality gets degraded. If it is, if the feedback loop does work well, then an organization can recover quickly from problems and defects in their software. So, in summarizing customer interactions, one of the biggest things is not tracking metrics well. You have to have a good set of metrics. And one set of metrics that what I really like is the cost it takes to fix an error that is in the field already. If you can track that metric, then you can justify putting more effort up front to eliminate those efforts, because that cost of fixing errors that are already in the field is enormous. And if you can quantify that, then you can make a good case for more developers, more QA people, getting more people to get the requirements better, and so forth. And then long wait times for customers, your customer service. Many times misunderstandings that come up, and it's really not the quality of the products. That's not the problem. The problem is that the customer, for some reason, is not understanding something. A quick turnaround and quickly responding can really help enormously in the perception of quality. So, are there any questions on that before I go on to a case study?
Yeah, Alan, there was one question on...
Jan,
Alan, can you hear me?
What? Go ahead.
There was one question on if XBOSoft has specific tools to manage the QPA and manage defects throughout the life cycle. How you do that?
Well, we use standard tools, like Rally and like Jira, and they have plugins. Like we just did a webinar with GoTo Group on the Synapse product that allows you to track requirements to test cases, which was very, very helpful, because if you can track requirements back to test cases, then you can make sure that that part of the quality is done well. And so those are good tracking tools. That's mainly in the development and the QA section. But the main service that XBO gives, and I'll go into that in a couple slides, what service that we give.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Next, what I want to do is go over our QPA methodology, and that will kind of set the stage for what XBO can offer. This is what we did for a customer. We went and we gave them questionnaires to every level of management. We gave them to the senior management. We had a different set of questionnaires for the VP level. We had a different set of questions for the line managers, and then a different set of questions for the actual QA testers and people that are in the front line with customers. So we had 4 levels of questions. And then we also did a customer audit. We called a number of customers. Now this is a little bit difficult because customers, their time is very, very busy, but we've got it down with an hour. We can go through and get quite a bit of information from the customer that the developer company usually doesn't quite understand the viewpoint of their customers many times. And then we go through their data and their documentation, which means their website, their marketing material, some of their process documents, and so forth. So we go through those 3 areas and we do an analysis of that. Then we go on site and we do interviews and more questionnaires. And the interviews, we usually come up with our interview strategy based on the questions we get, the answers we get from the questionnaires. And the interesting thing that we find is that the questions and the answers to the questions do not agree between the frontline managers, the VPs, and the senior executive team, and the line, and there's a big disconnect as what they believe is going on. And that gets revealed in the question, and the questionnaire kind of hints at it, and in the interviews, we really are able to uncover big disconnects within the company. So then after we go through that analysis, we give a quality audit to the company. And then we, after the on-site meeting, we give them an initial set of findings, an initial analysis, a very quick analysis to see where we're going. And then we go off-site and we analyze all the data we have. We write a report and we prepare for an executive workshop. Then we come back on-site and we do an executive workshop and we go through all our findings, our reports, our customer evaluation and audit, our employee evaluation and audit. We do the QPI and we present it to them. We do a thorough plan that shows how to fix those things and a report that outlines it so that the customer is very well prepared to implement those recommendations. This is what we deliver. First, you have the quality audit, QPA findings, and the QPI plan and report. So let's take a look at those things. Quality audit. That includes the customer audit. It's a report explaining our findings about what we found out with the customers. The employees audit. We go through and summarize with the employees at each level and each division, because many times the employees within a division on the same level are usually pretty consistent, but the answers to the same questions are many times very, very, very different depending on the level, whether you're line manager, the executive, or what department you're in, QA, development, product management, customer service, sales. And it's very interesting. This audit is very, very interesting because it reveals what different parts of the organization are thinking, what the perception of the quality of the product is, the perception of the other divisions. And then we do a quick quality workshop. We go through and talk with the people, mainly the the line managers and the executive team and get a good definition of quality that matches their product. If their product is a high quality, what would it look like? What would the customer say? And we all come up together with a definition that everybody agrees with, a definition of quality that fits their organization, their product. Then the QPA findings, which we deliver after the on-site time, we finish our on-site visit with a report of QPA findings. And that's just mainly the problems we uncovered. It's a presentation that we give just before we finish our on-site process. We go over the problems we found, the root causes, and some recommendations that can help, that they can get started on right away. And we do this, like I said, at completion of the on-site week. And then, last of all, we go off-site, we do an analysis, and we write up our report, and we do and we get ready our presentation. And then we come back on-site and do the plan and report. And the plan consists of a roadmap that shows, okay, here's the problem, and here's the path that you need to take to fix these things with an improvement plan. And then we also deliver an employee's assessment. What do the employees think of the processes, quality, and it really shows if there's a disconnect between management and the employees, because many times attitudes are surprisingly not good, or maybe they are good, but they are not what management expects. So management has a lot of work to do to get their employees either trained properly, or they get their attitudes toward quality change, and usually it starts with the executive team themselves. And so we usually lay out a map of how to do that. So we deliver quite a bit: the customer audit, the employees audit, quality workshop at the very beginning, right at the beginning of our on-site visit. And at the end of our on-site visit, we go over the problems, root causes, and make some recommendations. And then we finish by coming up with a plan, an improvement plan, and a report, and employee assessments. So, before we take a look at a case study of actually how we did this, did I leave anything out, Jan?
No, I don't think so. I think it was very good.
So I should just, okay. Let me go through this case study now. There was a company in the medical care industry, and this company, they were poised for huge growth. From their sales department, they were expecting to double, triple, they could even go 4 times the next year, the number of sales. But they were very worried that their product quality was lacking. And the reason that was a problem is because they knew that their product was very customer service oriented. Because they were selling to home care, they tracked the patient from the hospital to an outpatient, to a home care, to a nurse visiting. They tracked the patient through all its phases in many different medical care areas. And so if there was a question by a nurse or a doctor or the home care provider or the nursing home, they had to provide those questions answers to those questions very quickly. So they were very worried that if they got this extra growth, they had to hire enormous numbers of people to handle all the increasing questions, and they were convinced that if the quality of the product was higher, that would handle quite a bit of the problems. They already had 50 software engineers and 50 customer service representatives and product managers. And they asked XBOSoft for a quality process assessment. Now there was also something going on the side that we did not know about, which was there was another company that was looking at to buy them, but they were also worried about the quality of the product. So this company had many reasons to get the quality of the product higher, and they had to do it quickly because so many things, they couldn't wait another year. They had to take care of their issues now. So we went in and we did that process that I just outlined for you. We did a week of on-site after we did a couple weeks of the questionnaires, the customer audits, and so forth. And we discovered problems immediately, underlying problems and root causes. And yes, this was a case where one of the problems was the marketing material promised 5-second response on certain things. Well, their product is relying on databases from government databases, Medicare databases, Medicaid databases. There's no way they could meet a 5-second retrieval of information because they were getting information from many different places. Now the development team thought they were doing an excellent job because without their software, getting that information was extremely painful, extremely hard, and extremely long. And they streamlined it, so the software team was extremely proud of their effort and what they had accomplished in providing that information quickly, but it wasn't 5 seconds. So whereas the product development, the product manager and the developers were very proud of their quick response, and they were shocked when the customer thought it was very poor. Why? Because sales promised 5 seconds, the marketing material promised 5 seconds, the website promised 5 seconds, and they couldn't deliver that. It was impossible. So they had to get that correct, set expectations properly. And the customers actually were very, very pleased with getting the information under a minute. Because before that time, they couldn't get the information at all, or it was very long, or it was very painful to get all the information they needed quickly. So setting the expectations properly in that particular case. But the biggest problem we found in this company was rework at all phases. Why? Requirements were vague. Developers had to go back and ask, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? How does this work? Or they would do it wrong, and then the product manager would come down and say, that's not quite right. This is what I meant, not that. That resulted in the low customer perception of quality, unclear product requirements. So we worked really hard with the product manager said we are so overburdened with work, we do not have time. We just write it down real quick and throw it over the wall at development. So we were able to make a good case for hiring more product managers, but also the product managers had to realize, and we got them to realize, that they could cut down their own work if they did it right the first time. So, and then we also found out that their standards and best practices was not there. They did many things pretty much haphazardly. The standards, so we shared with them best standards, especially now that they were going to Agile, and what they could realistically expect. And their training also was very, very lacking. It was some people were extremely good and some people were not. Some people knew one part of the product, and they were the only ones. So if they were sick that day, nobody knew what was going on in that section of the product. So they had to do a lot of cross-training, which they set up. And then inspections throughout. It's a very, very effective way of solving problems. It's not that expensive, and it's very underused. Probably the best bang for the buck is inspections, so you have other eyes, good eyes that understand the product, can look at your section of the product, your section of the code, and help make it better. So those are just something, and we actually did some of these workshops to help them do inspections. We did some workshops to help reveal standards and best practices in different groups, and we outlined what a training program would look like for them. And so the result of that, of our QPA assessment, our quality process assessment of the company, they made immediate changes very quickly, and shortly after they were evaluated by another company, and their software of the quality of their software was deemed to be very good, and they got an extremely good offer that the owners were just ecstatic with, offer of to get bought out, which the owners were just ecstatic to take because the offer was so good. So they were very appreciative of the quality process assessment that we did for them. It enabled them to make some quick changes, some very, very important changes that really helped them quite a bit. So, are there any questions on that?
Alan, one question came in. If you talked about your technical definition of quality in the beginning. Can you describe the improvements in the case study based on your technical definition?
Okay, we were not able to get information to apply that definition. We did share that with them because they did not. That was one of our improvement. That was part of our improvement roadmap. We told them that because they were not tracking their defects properly, so they did not know what that number was. So part of the process that we gave them was how to track the defects better before and after they gave a release. The 90 days was a critical number because the 90 days after, to track all the defects during that period. And so they put together a plan to start tracking because if you can't measure it, if you can't track it, then you don't really control it. And this is a very good mechanism to control it. So that's what they started to do. And we are in the process of going back, and we're hoping that that's one of the things we find is that they have implemented that metric so they can track their defects properly.
Okay.
So yes, we would like to very much see their high quality, but we don't know that yet because they're not tracking it properly yet.
Okay. We didn't get any other questions during this webinar. If you have a question, please type it in your screen on the right side of your screen. No, it doesn't seem we're going to get a webinar. Alan, I want to thank you very much for teaching us so much about software quality and how we as QA and testers and the rest of the organization can help achieve it. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
And I want to close it. I want to thank everyone for joining and hope you'll be joining us at another webinar soon. Thanks a lot. Have a great day and till soon. Bye-bye.
All right.